Hi, Deb.
Hi, Andy.
Nice to talk to you again.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about this interest of yours in organizations and companies that are sharing and collaborating in the open source space.
Yeah. So I work at the Open Invention Network, which is very much a collaborative approach to dealing with software patents. Since we already collaborated on the code, which is of course the reason we're here, we might as well collaborate on the strategies to ameliorate patent risk as well. But that kind of has gotten me thinking on like what other kinds of things we might collaborate on too. So sometimes I have been talking with folks like how could we do a better job messaging free software and open source overall, and how can we do more collaboration around the outreach we do to schools? I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of organizations, the schools they work with are because they have an alum on their staff. And so those students, like, if they're not interested in that particular alum's company's offerings or programs for students, they don't end up finding out about any of the other things. And then for folks that don't have an alum on staff, they have they're limited on the schools that they can outreach to. So it's like it makes it kind of like really fragile and not very scalable to do more outreach to students, and I've just been noticing people talking about that. So I've been excited to kind of try and connect people up on the dots.
So in the student case, it's a function that is not performed that well on a single institution by institution basis. It's better to put it in a big central organization.
Well, certainly there are some schools that do a fantastic job, like the Oregon State University Open Source Laboratory does a fantastic job, but they're the only one that's doing that type of thing in particular. And so I think the next challenge is to figure out like, oh, maybe we could have like an OSL on the other coast, and then maybe then we decide we want one in the middle or something, or some could be a little different, but it's there are way more schools, so we don't have any kind of a presence at all. So
is it easy to persuade institutions like schools to sign up? How is it done?
So when I was overseeing Shauna at Open Hatch, it really depends on having a personal connection. Like that is usually what gets you in the door. Like, because it can be very difficult to say like, oh, we're a bunch of people and we want access to your students so that we can teach them about this thing we're really passionate about, and they're like, yes, we don't allow cults on campus. Like, no. And it's like, oh, okay, it's a sales pitch? No, it's also not a sales pitch. So without a personal connection to that campus, it can be really difficult to get in the door because you just look like, we have content we really want to share with your students. And not all of the people coming to schools with that content they really want to share for free are going to help students out.
Yes, being in publishing, I understand the conflicts and how easy it is to assume that another organization is out just to make money off of you.
Yeah, right. And we just want to share these tools and ideas about building software collaboratively and get students familiar with these tools so that it would be, it's going to make it easier for them to get jobs in the industry when they get out of school, but it's also going to get them used to working on collaborative projects, which is, I think, maybe I'm an optimist, but I think that's the direction we're going.
So after patents and after students, what other sort of projects can benefit from the collaboration?
Well, so this is the one that's been more difficult. And so I said we talked about messaging, which when you get outside of like the political sphere, we actually call marketing. So we have a little bit of a bugaboo about the word marketing, and really trying to consider what we look like as a community from the outside, and then working together to make sure that at best case doesn't just seem like a bunch of random unconnected stuff, and at worst case doesn't seem like, whoa, there's a lot of arguments and a lot of prickly personalities over there, because we talk about that stuff internally, but it's not necessarily what we want to lead with to the outside, right? So the next thing I'd love to see communities collaborate on is messaging and paying attention to the way that we look from the outside, like from far away to people who aren't yet involved.
It's funny because when you said that we need marketing, I was thinking, well, this is really a form of advocacy, and the Free Software Foundation always did that. And then I thought, well, some people were not that happy with how the Free Software Foundation does it.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and they're changing too. They're changing.
Oh, definitely. And I think, I mean, so it's a 30-year-old organization that spent 20 years trying to build an operating system that could be used by a non-technical user. And so the people who can build an operating system are really different than the people who can go find those non-technical users and the strategies and the activities you engage in. So I think the last 10 years has been a really, like the FSF pivoting and trying to make sure they keep all their technical folks and people who are passionate about building GNU tools, and then be like, but we built this, like we want people to use it, and we need to find different activities and different skills to bring into the organization. I think they're actually doing a fantastic job of embracing that now. It was less so when I got there, like you couldn't say the word marketing in the office without like, almost it felt like. But yeah, but also with advocacy, if you're trying to change the status quo, there are some people who are invested in the status quo, and you can't change stuff without at least irritating someone, if not full on pissing them off. So,
well, who could we get involved who's not already involved in working on free software?
Yeah, so, we talked about students, but I think we also need to do a better job of embracing like the non-coding skills, because they're gonna help us with this messaging and the outreach and, just making our websites look beautiful, making our user experience amazing, making the way that you learn how to use our tools a delight instead of a, head-pounding nightmare. No specific tools named there, but, it's we have to embrace that, and we're not going to do that, I think, if it's like, oh, hey, do you want to come be a second-class citizen in our big movement? So we're going to have to change the way we talk about coding, non-coding, and and make sure that we are putting out there that we're really embracing all of those tasks.
This came up at Community Leadership Summit over the weekend too.
Yep.
That everybody's important, not just developers.
Right. Yeah, and it's it's true. It's just looking at the current court case with Google and Oracle going on, we have apparently not been doing a very good job of messaging what open source is, how free software licenses work, because it's very highly connected with the legal issues. And we've done a terrible job of explaining that or valuing people who come into our space and want to understand how the legal issues work.
Well, even if you got all the other 6 billion people in the world to understand this, I think Oracle management would not get the point. but that's
Right.
an example.
Yeah, they might be the last
And the
on
judge,
list.
maybe, and the judges. So we've talked about some things that people in the free and open source software communities have to do, like respecting other people besides developers. Are there other things that we should be doing to help expand?
Well, and this is only if you want to expand. Like sometimes people will say, I don't think it's fair that you get to tell me what to do and change all our language and do all this and that. And I said, if you don't want your project to grow, like you can just stay where you are. You don't have to do anything. But if you want your project to grow and you want your user base to grow, then yeah, I think you need to look at try and get an outside perspective on your processes. So if you have a friend who every time you talk about what you do in free software, their eyes glaze over, take them to lunch and have them come look at your website and see if they can figure out what it is that you're doing. And if they can't, then you have to keep changing that website until it's clear what it is. I mean, there are some tools pretty far down the stack that maybe not the best for your friend who's like a pottery whiz or something. But it's very hard to look at your own website, your own new user processes, your own new contributor processes when you're so close up to it. So if you can get someone else to look at it for you, that's going to be better. Shauna and I did this past.
Who was this piece?
Shauna Gordon McKeon. So she's one of the people I collaborated with at Open Hatch.
Okay.
And so we did a SpinachCon in March, where we had projects that wanted new contributors have people come in and try and navigate their new contributor processes. Because if you're a lead developer on a project, you know where your repository is, you know that that branch is a false friend, you know that the real work is over here, you know that where to find out like what's current, what's beta, what's happening is the mailing list or it's IRC or whatever it is. But when a new person comes in, they don't know that. And if there's not a place for them to find out, then they're going to ask a question. And probably not in the channel you hope they do, right? Somewhere else it'll be the info at whatever.org that no one looks at, right? And then they're going to think, oh, I guess you don't want new people, So, but some of it's more subtle than that. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize you used this word and that link's broken because we moved the repository, but everyone else found it once because they're already involved and we never updated our docs. Like, oops. So having someone from the outside look at your processes for handling new users and new contributors is really going to help you get a project that is, people don't get stuck on the first or second step on their way in. And, that's a lot of wasted enthusiasm. If you're going to have a website, it should be one that is for people that aren't already familiar with your project.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in and talking.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andy. I was, it's just a couple years in a row now, I think, so. Right.